exciting age where there's an abundance of information. The challenge can be deciphering fact from fiction. It can be difficult to create conscious lifestyle decisions, really thinking about each choice we make.
The idea for this video came to us after we received the new DVD with Raw the documentary film, which we sponsored over a year ago. It is about a raw vegan food diet, which is a growing worldwide movement, and because we had our own 5 months personal experience with it, we feel we need to share and warn people about some of its pitfalls. Even if you don't care about what you eat, please watch this video till end, because we don't make it about food, but about the deception and about looking objectively at different choices we have to make by considering them from the point of view how they fit into the true purpose of our lives. This raw diet movement is just an example of something much bigger than this, of what's going on behind our backs. It's not without sponsors, and therefore it has its own agenda. So what's the catch here? We're going to show you this problem is twofold. First and mainly, it gets people to focus entirely on their carnal lives and derail them from the true purpose of their lives. Trying to pursue the ultimate goal of perfecting their health and longevity, people don't even bring that physical benefit which this lifestyle claims. For those of you not familiar with a raw vegan food, it's basically a low-calorie, plant-only food which people adopt as a panacea against all diseases. With the increase of incurable diseases like cancers, people became very concerned about their health, but they get especially desperate to try something extreme after a critical event in their lives. In our case, that trigger was the death of my father due to cancer. It influenced our frantic search to understand the reasons and find solutions. In the case of this raw documentary, Jeanette was diagnosed with cancer.
That had I not made those choices, I would never have experienced the joy and the happiness.
Whether Jeanette in fact went through this herself or not, it's said in the video that it happened to her 13 years ago. What do you think of a person who is sobbing about something that was successfully resolved that many years ago? I would say this person is either terribly messed up by arguing with what no longer existed, or she is a good actress, artificially recreating negative emotions for the video. In fact, this video does make many efforts to provoke strong emotional reaction from the viewers artificially, which means by viewing the film instead of going through the drastic life event themselves, to recreate that trigger in them, which instills fear for their lives and inspires more followers.
Mostly their reactions were coming from fear.
And the fear is always a bad guide. Fear only blinds people. So what can go wrong in the case of raw vegan diet? Let's start by looking at what it promises. The reason people fall for this diet is the desire to have perfect health, cancer-free and live long lives. Offered as a counterpart to obviously wrong food choices, like deep fried, processed, refined, sugary, oily food, raw food calls to totally abstain from any cooked food, so it includes all lasting carbs, root vegetables, grains, as well as animal products. This diet is very low calorie, and so to compensate for the lack of energy intake, raw fooders rely almost entirely on sweet fruits and very often eating up to every hour. Unfortunately, experience shows this is unlikely a panacea to all physical problems. Besides some of its benefits, it creates its own health problems. First, it leads to deficiency in vitamins, and Victoria Butenka, a pioneer in the raw food movement, researcher and author of many books, recognizes that.
Yes, there are downsides. I think that raw food is wonderful, it is healthy, but you cannot go 100% raw for very long. For different people, it lasts for different time. For example, if people have lots of nutrition in their life, they probably accumulated enough nutrients in the body, they could last maybe for 2 years without any side effects, without problem. But some people are not very healthy. For them, 2 months would be enough. Unfortunately, my family made a big mistake. It's not good to be fanatical about anything. Animals to be alive. I didn't want to hurt animals. Yes. So I decided we're not going to eat animals. That was a mistake.
So people end up with supplementing with pharmaceutical chemicals, which is bad by itself because who knows what effect these artificial substances will have on you. Also, these supplements don't even solve the problem because of the lack of the fats to store those vitamins in the body. Another common trap occurs because people can't narrow their food choices any further, and they end up with eating any fruit available, including, and most of the time, non-organic. As a result, they poison themselves further by getting a lot more of harmful chemicals than people on a regular diet. Because of this, and also because this diet is very high maintenance, it creates the following big unnecessary problems for the people. First, it causes often lack of energy and loss of physical strength. After following it strictly for 5 months, we weren't able to do our regular pull-ups. Second, it makes you feel dizzy in mind, memory problems, which people misconceive for spiritual experience. Third, most of the time, feeling hungry and miserable, always dreaming about the next meal. Fourth, constantly worry for their degrading health, obsessed with their blood tests, require doctors' checkups every 6 months. Fifth, spending a lot of money. It may cost up to $1,000 a month per person, which keeps people busy working basically only for their food, and by the way makes perfect slaves out of them. 6. It's extremely time-consuming, to the degree that it occupies all their free time. And as they require a lot of quickly perishable fruits, it involves constant moving of boxes around. Also, raw fooders normally buy fruits wholesale in places like food terminals, by entire boxes, which involves distant traveling for shopping and incessant chores of disposing of all the boxes, and problems with rotting fruits and fruit flies. 7. Raw fooders doing what is contrary to what they claim they want for the environment. Instead of protecting it, they finance pharmaceutical industry and a lot of transportation, even during summer, because local fruits like apples do not supply them with sufficient energy for the day. 8. In social settings, they either feel inadequate to the rest of people or exalt themselves in their own minds above the others, judging other people primarily based on their willpower to control appetite or the lack of it. Inconveniences with the food lead them to narrow their circle of communication to only raw fooders, which is sad. People become more and more divided. 9. Finally, even if raw food can be helpful as a temporary cleansing for the body, the same raw food can lead to incurable diseases in the long run. A disaster that happened to our friend's son, who adopted this diet when he was very young, before 18 years old. And for over 7 years on this food, he has developed problems with bleeding stomach, which makes him lose red blood cells, lose weight, becoming more and more feeble to the degree that he can't leave his house by himself anymore, and nothing helps him so far. And 10th, regardless of all these problems and setbacks, the influence of the leaders of this raw food movement is so strong that people become religious about this diet, and they are worshipping their health by means of this diet, giving up all their concerns, money, and time for it. And like with all religions, this blind faith prevents them from evaluating their situation objectively. So even if they see that things don't go the way they hoped for, they are in a paralyzing fear that if they eat or drink anything except what's prescribed by their leaders, that is anything cooked, they die. Seriously, I'm not joking. So they stay stuck with this choice. In short, people following this diet do not find that level of physical well-being they are looking for. And this is not only our opinion. There's a helpful book called Beyond Broccoli by Susan Schenck, which uncovers a lot of lies about how raw vegan food leaders themselves do not stick to what they preach. It means they do lie to the rest. Why? That is the question everyone must ask himself. Also, interestingly, this diet is typically presented as a forbidden fruit. Someone's created a deceptive conspiracy theory claiming that government hides this panacea from people. And this theory is often the deciding factor in favor of this life choice. The trick is working. But is it true that government hide this alleged panacea from masses? If it was true, how would you explain regular sponsored events and raw food festivals? What about famous raw fooder David Wolf, now having his own regular TV time on Global? How about actors in the raw documentary films speaking themselves about support they receive from schools and governments? What about events spreading around the world? Invitations, global media interest. How about media constantly promoting veganism? All this does look like a lot of fuss for something restricted, doesn't it? And if this is in somebody's interest, what is the agenda they are pursuing? The key to the answer is in what's most important for human life on Earth, which is the main secret guarded from masses. To understand how this particular agenda fits into the big picture, we need to understand and remember that we, in addition to our bodies, have spirit in us. And this spirit is designed to outlive our body, but only if we wake up to it and follow it, that is, if we fulfill the purpose of our life on Earth. So why getting people sucked in this lifestyle, like raw vegan, is profitable for the governments? The answer is to keep people busy with their carnal lives and to make them search for their well-being in the wrong places, where the well-being is impossible. And why keeping masses in the cares about their bodily needs is essential for the governments? Because governments need to keep people enslaved. And if we do not remember of our true origin, which sent us into this life, we are nothing but slaves, fearful and obedient, supporting our oppressors, chronically unhappy, and seeking no way out of that. Without realizing that our spirit will never die if we fulfill our purpose in this life. Without knowing this universal truth, people think they are merely mortal animals. Having this totally wrong mindset, people cannot stop being afraid of everything and everybody. How we can be certain about that? Because we all know that our bodies will die sooner or later, and they deteriorate every day, and nobody can stop this process. And therefore it doesn't make sense for us to invest in our bodies that much. But our spirit, contrary to the body, is not getting weaker, but getting stronger, and in talking to us, pulls us like magnet toward love to others and higher morals. Why do we afraid of death? Where does this feeling come from? And so, if we don't do what is required of us by the Spirit, then we'll feel, first of all, periodic reminders in the form of anxiety or depression. And secondly, we'll feel fear of death, because if we don't follow our purpose, we are on the verge of dying in spirit too, together with our bodily death. We each know this truth instinctively, and we don't want to die in spirit, and therefore inside of us we always know that when we don't do what is expected from us, we are afraid of dying. And this continues until we realize and start living according to our purpose. And the same happens with our diseases, where instead of frantically fighting the disease and getting upset about them, we should use this sick time as a chance to get ourselves on track in accordance with our purpose. And the same goes with the panacea from all diseases. Even if it was one, still it wouldn't be worth wasting our time on pursuing it, as it does nothing to our spirit. Remember, Christ said, "Do not ask Heavenly Father for false treasures or earthly pleasures, as sinners do, but ask only that He strengthen the path leading to His kingdom, so that before your death you might see the Most High. For if you will not see God during your life, you won't see Him after either."